My guest today is William Michael Forbes. He's a spiritual medium, channel, and an intuitive guide. William, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Jake. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with you like this.
Yes, I'd seen how I came across you is I'd seen some of your posts on social media and listened to the content that you were expressing there, and I thought he would be perfect for the show. So I really, really appreciate you being here. I think people are going to get a lot out of this.
I hope so too.
As I mentioned before, spiritual medium, channel, and intuitive guide is how I'm introducing you. Could you take a few moments and kind of define each one of those things and tell the audience what that means?
Certainly, well, a spiritual medium is an individual who's being able to gain access to information that's not readily available to our five physical senses. So some people call it intuition, sensing, just knowing, having hunches, but it's an individual that can receive access to information that's not readily available to our five physical senses. And of course, an intuitive life coach is just someone who tunes in again to information that's not readily available to the five physical senses.
Okay. And how did you come to be a medium and a channel? Is this something that's been with you your whole life or something that came later?
Well, in terms of the original starting point was about 45 years ago when I was, well, to give you a quick backstory, I was terribly abused as a child from about age 7 around age 13. And that set the stage for a lot of alcoholism, drug addiction, and just a downward spiral of self-worth that resulted in me by my age 20 standing near the edge of a bridge in Toronto called the Bloor Viaduct and getting ready to jump off it. And yeah, I got up on the bridge, I put my foot out, I was almost ready to jump. And I remember in the last moment, I just said, if there's anybody that could help me, help. And at that moment, I heard a voice say, stop. And I pulled my foot back in and I looked around and there was nobody there. Anyway, that moment changed my life. And that voice gave me a name and a phone number to call. And I literally walked over to the nearest payphone and called that number. And when the person that I was told to ask for answered the phone, I just melted down into tears and just told them my situation. They said, come live with my family. Or gave me the address, which was just a few blocks away from where I was. So I ended up
Hmm.
staying with him and his family for a few years and recovered. But that was the starting point. But I didn't realize, because when I met that man and I told him the story about the voice speaking to me, he said, listen, you've got some really serious problems. Don't bring that into this conversation anymore. And he led me to do other things. And it wasn't until about 6 years ago when my wife and I were driving through the mountains in Grossmoron. What ended up happening is I'm up in the mountains with her, and this incredible smell fills the car. This flowery smell. I said, "Do you smell that?" And she said, "No, I don't. I don't smell that." And then a voice says to me, "I am the mother. Pull over so I can speak."
Hmm.
And I said to Norma, I said, "Somebody's saying they're the mother." I thought Mother Nature or something, right? That's my first thought. Well, it took about 45 minutes to drive down the mountain to a small fishing village where I pulled over by the ocean. And I said, "Well, I'm here. You can talk." And all of a sudden, this woman came into my consciousness and she just started speaking literally through my body. It turns out it was Norma's mother who had just passed away 7 days before.
Wow.
And she and Norma had a conversation for about 45 minutes, which she fortunately recorded.
Hmm.
And then that's when that launched me into the teaching and the stuff that they've given us to do. But it was that dark place that really, where it made me aware that there was something else. But these last 5.5 years, when her mother started speaking to me, that's when I started hearing the voice of Jesus and the voice of Buddha and the voice of other ascended masters who've been guiding me and Norma along this path of giving information back to people that would restore them to love, help them get out of their suffering and their pain. And they literally downloaded these courses into our lives. It's been amazing just watching how people show up and are needing to be healed. It's been really, really powerful. Being realizing there's these other dimensions of consciousness, other people, other beings that we can communicate with that aren't in the world the way we are in the world physically. It's been quite the most amazing last 5.5, 6 years of my life have been really defined by these beings that I interact with that have and teach me to show people how to connect to those beings in their lives. And that we have a very fundamental and important purpose to play. Everybody does.
Yes.
Restoring ourselves to love, ending our suffering. Nobody came here to suffer, came here to create.
Yes. So before that, before the experience with the voice and with, you said this was Norma's mother?
Yes.
Is Norma your wife, your partner?
Yeah, Norma's my wife. The voice
Okay.
that I heard on the bridge, I now know is my guardian angel, John.
Okay.
He's been very tight with me for the last 6 or 7 years, but he was the one that prevented me from jumping off the bridge. And like I said, if that hadn't happened, I would not be here having this communication with you right now,
Yeah.
because that completely changed my life.
And before any of that, did you have any inkling or any interest even in this type of reality? No, not at
No,
all.
never even crossed my mind. I've never been religious. If you had mentioned Jesus to me, I'd run the other direction because of this. I think it would be a connection to religion. But I can look back now. I can see little instances in my past where things happened that were remarkable and surprising, and I can say, yeah, they've actually have been with me my whole life. I just have been unconscious to it for the most part, as most people are. Everybody's got guides. Everybody's
Yes.
got angels, and everybody can learn how to connect with them.
And I myself have had experiences where I have heard, literally have heard a voice, and it was as though it came from the outside too, because sometimes you'll hear things in your head, and I've heard things from the outside, and it happens so infrequently. What do you think it is that when people have these experiences spontaneously, why are they able to have them, at all? And then for the most part, for most of the time, they're not having them. What is it that allows us to do that?
That's a great question. And what I've been told about that is people will let their guard down. They let their ego, they step out of their personality, their framework of a fixed identity. They step out. They have moments where they step outside of that. And in that moment, it's like getting outside of a crowded bar for a moment just to hear, and all of a sudden you hear. And that's what happens to most people. They'll fall out of their ego and they'll
Yeah.
hear and they'll connect to different realms of information.
And this happened actually as I was not asleep for sure, but I was falling asleep. And I think a lot of us, we might just write that off because sometimes you have these strange dreamlike scenes. You're like, well, I was about to fall asleep, so I must have been dreaming or this or that. Is that falling asleep a natural way in which we sort of let go of the ego and step out of that crowded bar, every night when we fall asleep? Is that why we might perceive these things more easily?
That's one reason that you can certainly do that, because you are. I call that falling awake, not falling asleep.
Yeah.
Because we got so attached to who we think we are, we exclude so much more. And those moments where you're between the personality and not being in the body identity, yeah, your senses can open up to these different aspects of information and experience that aren't readily available through the body.
Yeah, and I think I think there's people are starved for this type of information and this type of experience. And one of the things that you talk about is connecting with our source, and that it's as natural as we are, as the fact that we're eternal souls. You talk about the existing educational system and how that kind of suppresses that ability. Do you want to speak more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Great question. One of the things that most people believe they believe they are just a body, or they believe they're just the content of our mind, and we're not. Yet we're raised in a system of environment that forces us to only use five physical senses of perception. So most people are only looking at what they see, hear, smell, touch, taste. Most people don't look beyond the five sensory apparatus, and our whole educational system loans itself to keeping people vested in the five senses. And what I've been told is that when we are born, we actually have nine different primary senses that are available to us. The first five, of course, are physical: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And the other four are what we call our spiritual senses, or clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, which mean clear seeing, clear hearing, clear feeling, and clear knowing. So these are other faculties that we have, that we're born with, but they do not get developed because we're externalized. You can see examples in high school. You might have had a time where you and your buddies were sitting in the hall and you watched this cute little girl go by, and a part of you kind of goes, wow, she's really cute. And suddenly she stops and turns around. Or you're thinking about somebody and suddenly they call you. We have these other senses that do not get exercised, and yet everybody has them. And There are practices like meditation and which are really powerful for activating these other senses. And you just described an event where you were going to sleep at night, where you're dropping out of the body, out of sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. You're leaving the world behind, and that other sense of hearing a voice kicks in. So everybody can learn to shift their perception from the body senses to the spiritual senses, the other faculties that we all have. But again,
Yeah.
most of the environment loans itself to keeping us ensnared or trapped in just the five physical senses.
And do you feel that that is by design in any manner, this idea that we're trapped, or at least to contain us to that sort of materialism view of ourselves in the world?
Well, I think we have a blessing both to have a physical world, but also this other self that we rarely get to explore or experience. By design, I think perhaps in some degrees, in certain ruling authorities, they might structure things to keep people disconnected from, for example, knowing if somebody's telling you the truth or not. You see that in conventional Western politics where they've learned to speak and articulate words really well, but they manipulate and trick people because people are disconnected from that sense that could see beyond the words and hear and feel the truth from that person, because you can. You can look
Yes.
at somebody, you can tune into their energy, and you can know if that person's sincere or real or artificial. But they don't teach that. They don't teach children to close your eyes and go inside and quiet your thoughts. And who are you if your thoughts are quiet? They don't teach children to do that.
Right. And I even mean to even further degree to where I guess the ruling class, maybe we could even say, now it gets a little conspiracy theorist like here, a ruling cabal, a group of people who are aware of this humanity's potential for this and have they know the power and have suppressed people's knowledge of it in order to more easily control them. Do you feel that anything like that is going on? Is that something that
Absolutely.
comes?
That happened in the biblical times of Jesus, where he was teaching people to connect to God, to connect to the angels. He was teaching people meditation, diet, proper health, proper hygiene. He was teaching this on a massive scale for that time period. And it was liberating people from believing the authority was government only. So they started believing a higher power.
Yeah.
And certainly there was a concerted effort to not just murder him for teaching this and awakening people to these other abilities that we have, but the Roman Empire, for example, spent the next 300 years killing virtually anybody who learned from him. A lot of, that's common knowledge that the Romans did that for up to 300 years. They went out fed the Christians to the lions, and not just the Christians, but anybody who believed in this other power, in this other divinity. And Jesus taught clairvoyance. He taught clairaudience. He taught clairsentience. Learn how to hear. Learn how to be still. Learn how to be quiet. He taught these things. And so, yeah, there was certainly a concerted effort, historically speaking, that I can say is true from that time period. And I can say the same thing perhaps exists now when you look at the model of learning and education for people is all based on what you get out here, but very little is loaned to itself to going within and knowing who you are.
Yes, yes. So then I talk about with all my guests the what seems to be going on right now, and maybe it's just because I surround myself with it, but that there is quite a bit of a mass awakening to this, and like I said, people are starving or thirsty for this. Do you get that sense too, in the experiences that you're having, that people are essentially waking up? They're not believing what they've been programmed to believe, especially the newer generations, and they're seeking this out and more receptive to it.
Absolutely. When I was first given the dispensation that I've been given to give to the world, was the dispensation of learning to live from either love or live from fear, to function from love or function from fear. And and this massive awakening is literally the reawakening to our function of love as opposed to our function of fear. Fear is a function that is leveraged very well in conventional society, where television, entertainment, many of these systems are designed to keep us in survival, fight, or flight mode, which disconnects us from creation, which is a different function than survival. So a lot of what we see going on with kids today is to keep them into this feels good, that smells nice, that looks nice, I look this way. So much of what's being put towards people is designed to keep them in the body self. But that's shifting now. There's a massive shift in collective unconsciousness that's been happening for about 6 years now, where people are being moved out of the satisfaction and comfort of the external world to now looking away from the world to where will I find love, and where will I find joy, and where will I find peace? Because I can't find it in the world. And you're seeing this massive wave of people moving towards mysticism, alchemy, witchcraft, all these different things that are trying for people are desperately seeking to know the truth.
And what do you
And
attribute that? Sorry, go ahead.
well, I think that's we all have a deep and profound learning to one, know our value, and two, to be able to articulate that value as a creative expression in this world. I think that's at the core of every human being is this deep source of creation. And I feel with all my heart and soul, every single human being is designed to function as an extension of love and not an expression of fear. And that I think is really the big move, because people are dissatisfied with wealth and power and authority and control, and they're being guided back towards themselves. When I get so many people coming to me about learning to heal their anger, their rage, their fear, their guilt, their shame, trouble, all the things in the world that are bothering them, and guiding them to reconnect internally to who you quintessentially are. And it doesn't take long. A person can be we get people that come for readings that are clinically depressed or clinically anxious or suicidal. And literally in a half-hour session, their energy can shift from pure depression to pure bliss. And I've seen that many, many, many times.
Do you feel then that if we're just looking at, what are we doing down here as humanity, this experience we have, it seems to be that it is kind of dominated by this idea of duality. And you can't know one thing without the other. So the idea that there might be some group of people who are suppressing and controlling us through fear, is that necessarily a mistake in the grand scheme of things, or was that by design for this place, that in one way or another that was always going to be here for us as souls to learn from and expand from?
That's a great question. And from a zooming out framework, I would say, yeah, it is all by design. And I would also say that there's an aspect of ourself that is waking up, that realizes I'm not these thoughts, I'm not these emotions. Who am I? There's this real questioning beginning to go on of, why do I have the thoughts I have? Why do I have the feelings I have? What can I do to change them? Who am I? What's going on? There's over 1.7 million people successfully unalive themselves around the planet. Quite effectively, people. It's a large scale. People are migrating out of the body because they don't have a model of self that lets them reframe their mind. And most people don't know how to change their minds. Most people can't even alter their own thoughts without some sort of guidance. And I think we're at a point right now where people are desperate to remember that you're not your thoughts, you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're a soul. You're a creative, sentient, functioning consciousness that can change and alter matter as an act of your own free will.
Yes. And we kind of spoke earlier, so we talked about that might be I guess if there was a main thing, one of the main reasons for experiencing third dimensional physicality, and experience like this, was to know ourselves as creators within this.
Yes, absolutely. Again, if you think you're just the body, then there's not much you can. Something happens to the body, then something's happened to you. If you realize you're not the body and you have actually some authority and control over how its lungs work, how its heart works, how the blood functions go, alter your blood pressure. I've been fortunate enough in my lifetime to have had serious traumas that I was able to heal through the use of my consciousness. And most people can't do that. Most people go get the pill or the drug or the surgery to try and transcend a physical condition. And I'm all for that if it works for you. However, I think we came here to really learn to master creation, to know that we're not subjective to the world, but the world yields itself to us. Back to your earlier statement about, is there a duality here? Yeah, there absolutely is a duality here. And it is necessary for us to have a contrast, to make a different choice about something that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So you do a lot of individual readings. Is this what you spend most of your time doing readings for people, and then maybe readings for the collectives as you channel these? I don't want to call them guides, because you're channeling, it sounds like you're an open channel to whatever may come through.
Well, I wouldn't say whatever may come through, because I got a definition about what I'm open and receptive to. And I'm open and receptive to love's wisdom, knowledge, and information being imparted to people. That's my focus. Is we all have a choice between whether or not what we're gonna receive, think, feel, say, or do. Is it coming from love, or is it coming from fear? And that's the foundation of what the ascended masters have given me to channel to other people and given us to do in the form of courses and class to educate people on how to climb out of the muck of the personality and reclaim authority and autonomy over their mind. But yeah, there's a range of different things that we're engaged in. Reading is an important part of it, because in individual readings, I get people that have spent decades in depression, and in a couple of hours that lifts and it's gone, and they connect to who they are. It's quite remarkable, because I'm not a very, I wouldn't say I'm an intelligent man, but I'm open enough to allow information to flow through that most people wouldn't normally get. And again, as you know, I run a live show 4 times a week, on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, on YouTube and on my TikTok channel, where I allow different individuals and collectives, Jesus, Buddha, the Ascended, the Divine Collective, many others, to channel a message to people, because they said people need information founded and grounded in love, from which they can build a platform of a feeling good self. Because if you feel good about yourself, you can do more, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we have a range of different things that we've been given to actually give to people, that they can restore themselves to their soul function, if I could use that term.
Yeah. What type of information then does a person get when they're in a state of this deep depression? And what is it that they hear or experience that is able to turn them around so drastically?
They hear the voice of love, they hear the voice of reason, they hear the voice of truth. They're reminded of the fact that they are not their thoughts, they're not their emotions. This is a big piece of the whole confusion for a lot of people in this world. Your thoughts and your emotions are not who you are. Your thoughts and emotions are predominantly just information you've acquired, and that information is bonded to an electromagnetic charge that's perceived as negative. So if you got thoughts, I'm no good, nobody loves me, you're going to generate qualities of emotion that make you feel uncomfortable. So it's really getting that first distinction. Once a person knows they are not their thoughts, that they can actually alter and change their emotions really rapidly. So we have people come into reading and they're in a very dark place. And one of the things that they always have me do with people, they always say, get them to relax, become aware of where their emotions live in their body. And so let's say it's depression. They feel the depression is around their head or chest. And they always have the person have a communication with their depression, or they're the part of the body, and they'll a communication like, no matter what I thought or felt or believed about you, I love you. And they'll say, you need to say these words to your depression or your anxiousness or whatever the emotion is. And without exception, 100% of the time, when people communicate to those dark emotional states in that energy, it changes them. Because most people are used to, I don't want to feel this, get rid of it. I'll take a pill, I'll drink some alcohol, I don't want to feel this. Most people try to push those emotions away. And they have us do the exact opposite. They say, no, you bring them to it and you get them to extend love and grace to it. And that produces a profound and phenomenal change in their consciousness almost immediately.
Is that then what, when I hear people talk about shadow work, is that what you'd call shadow work, facing the dark things within you?
Yeah, I would certainly call that a function of shadow work, but this is a little bit deeper than that, because you're actually taking a functional energy that you've acquired from this world, your anger, your rage, your guilt, your fear, your depression, your anxiety. You're taking emotions that have been stored in your body, sometimes months, years, decades even, and you're functionally stepping outside of them, and you're literally transforming them with your consciousness. And yeah, that is a form of, if you want to look at those negative emotions as being like the shadow self, and you can change it with your consciousness. And like I said, I've countless times I've watched people they just light up when they've been dealing with the depression. They suddenly love this part that's depressed, and the depression literally changes within inside. They go, my God, it's disappearing. It's because all it is about what Jesus taught: love, love thine enemy. Which is, again, some people perceive their own depression and anxiety as an enemy.
Right.
And when you learn to love your enemy, it completely changes what functions. And like I said, I've seen it countless times, not just in readings, which are very powerful, but also in our masterclass series and in our live shows. When we've had people come on live, we've had people have some pretty remarkable things happen, where, chronic pain for 10 years, and it's got the
And
miraculous, yeah, yeah, physical pain. A
it's
woman who was in, yeah, she a woman in Toronto, actually. She'd gotten into an accident while in a family RV, and a tractor trailer just destroyed the RV and implanted her on the grill of this thing, and she ended up being hospitalized for quite a period of time and could not live without painkillers. And she came on the show one night, and we just had her love the pain. And she said, she just burst into tears and said the pain's gone. It's the first time in 10 years she was pain free.
So when she's being taught or guided to love the pain, what type of visualizations? I mean, how do they drum that up for something like
That's a
pain?
great question. Well, what I feel them when I connect to them, I'm connecting not just to them, I'm connecting to their guides with my guides. And there's an actual interaction that happens above our own minds and bodies that interacts with them. So they'll might say to me, sense and feel where the pain is most intense in your body, which is what they did with her. She sensed where the pain was most intense. And then they said to her, now turn your attention to the pain and tell your pain you're willing to love it, even if you don't understand it. And so she does that. She does that. And then they say, what do you feel? And then she goes, I'm feeling it getting lighter. Well, tell the part that's getting lighter that you love it and cherish it. And they walk her through a whole process. I'm paraphrasing right now because I
Yes,
don't commit to memory everything that happens. But literally, like in the span of like 7 minutes, she's gone from chronic pain to pain free.
really.
And it's the communication. So I communicate with her guides that communicate with my guides, and there's a transfer of information that happens both from that level and through my body. So I communicate the information I'm given to her that they're giving to me through my guides.
What would you tell someone who was asking you then, how could I learn to communicate with my guides myself? What types of things do you teach around that?
Well, first of all, is learning how to get your mind and body out of the way. Because your mind, and most people spend, 24/7 in their thoughts, swirling around what they remember, what they're anticipating, what they're thinking about. There's no room for them to look for anything or experience anything else. And quite simply, the first step is to teach a person how to get their mind to be quiet. First and foremost, get the mind quiet. Secondly, get the body quiet, calm, open, and receptive, so that your mind and body, as if like, when you're going to sleep and you heard that voice, that's
Yes.
because your mind and body got out of the way far enough that you could actually hear. So the first thing is teaching people how to get their, and again, the Ascended Masters do this in all the master classes. They teach people how to breathe, how to meditate, how to quiet the mind, how to still the body, so that the soul gets liberated from its attachment to the self of the personality. And you begin to experience what you are separate from your thoughts. And so when the mind and body are quiet, that's when you actually begin to hear. That's when you can begin to hear anything other than what you're used to hearing from what your memories are, what your thinking is. Because most people only stay within the framework of what they know. But once
Yes.
you put your mind and body into a position where it gets quiet, then you move into the realm of what you don't know. And in the realm of what you don't know, everything is potentially available for you to receive in terms of information, knowledge, and guidance. But that's the
So,
foundational start, is teaching one to quiet their mind and quiet their body so they can actually begin to hear.
and meditation then as the root of everything. It just keeps coming up over and over, no matter who I'm
Yeah,
talking to. Do you
yeah,
have a daily meditative practice? Because that's going to be the core of all of it. So here's one
yeah.
more person saying that. So that
Well,
doesn't
they teach us,
surprise
they say guided meditation is where people start.
me.
You, you,
Okay.
you start by being guided through the process. Much the same as you'd hire a Sherpa guide to take you up Mount Everest. You wouldn't try and do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Same thing with meditation. You want again, if you go through meditation with Master Jesus or Buddha or Yogananda, and they guide you through a meditation, it's pretty remarkable because without exception, you are in a state that's unbelievable. So many times we've had people say, I don't want to come back,
Yeah.
because they get guided to a place that the Ascended Masters know how to go to that we don't. But they always say the same thing. Say, once you get there, you know it exists. And once you know it exists, you'll hunger for it because it's better than anything else you'll find in your mind.
Yeah, and
But
I
it's
feel
a,
like that's been going on with me personally in my life now, is it's really the only thing. I go to work, I come home, and any free moments that I have, I'm trying to get myself quiet and sit in that space, or at least achieve that space. So I hear that deeply.
yeah, it's such a good, and it's a place that everybody can get to. We've had people come into our paths who are driving around with AK-47s in their vehicles and want to commit mass murder. And they come into the class and they step out of their mind for the first time in their life. They step outside of their rage, they step outside their anger, and now fundamentally their life is completely changed. They throw away the guns, they throw away their anger is now gone, and they go off and they help other people.
How do so this is all happening in what you keep referring to as your master class. Yes? How do
Yeah,
people find
well,
out
it
about
doesn't just happen. It happens in the master classes too, but it also happens in private readings. In the master class, again, you can go to my website if anybody was interested in pursuing a deep dive into connecting to your guides, your angels, ascended masters, loved ones. You check out my website, WilliamMichaelForbes.com, and you can see all the courses we have there. And you can also join me live on TikTok Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do a meditation day on Saturday, of course. But on TikTok and YouTube, just search William Michael Forbes, and you'll be walked through. You'll see some of the people come on the show and have their experiences. And like I said, well, you stumbled across our show once,
Yeah,
right?
that's how I found you. It's TikTok.
Yeah,
Okay, and I'll put that information too with this video and in the links. I want people to be able to know how to contact you, those hearing this and are interested in taking it further. Would you be willing to do any kind of channeling here? Not necessarily personal channeling, but just questions for the guides, one or two of those. I keep
absolutely.
calling them guides, but um, I had some. I just wanted to jump right into it. What do these? Should I just call them the ascended masters when I refer to them, or does it even matter? I just
Well,
want you to.
again, it depends on the nature of the question you're asking.
Okay.
You want what you personally want to know, what your guides or angels want you to know too.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask, what would you like all of humanity to know right now? What's one or two of the most important things that people need to hear now in order to help guide us through these times that, if you're focused on it, are very tumultuous, dark, and heavy? What should we know now that you think is the most important thing, if that can be summed up that way?
Fundamentally, the most important thing that you need to know about changing the dynamic in this world and in your own life is understanding the different function between love and fear. Everything that you will say or do, think, will either be a function of love or a function of fear. There is no more middle ground here. There are only two functions for every soul to carry out in this dimension of creation. The first one is love, and the second one is fear. Every single thought, every action, every word, both internal and external, is going to be either a function of love or a function of fear. It is up to you to become conscious and aware in the moment which one you are exercising. Your humanity is at a very unique and beautiful place right now where you are collectively in this process of choice, collectively between love and fear. There are no other elements in this process of creation other than love and fear. But each and every one of you has the will and the capacity to recognize and identify in any moment, is this thought, is this word, is this action of love or fear? And in that process of decision making, if you choose love, well, your life will take on a very different dimension than if you choose fear. But both will function creatively to define your experiences, individually and collectively. This is where you all are right now. You are on the pathway between love and fear. You cannot serve both. You can serve only one at a time, that is, because you can vacillate back and forth from love to fear. But we would encourage you to choose love, as the long-term prospect for your experience in this physical dimension through the function of love is significantly more beneficent than functioning with fear, which you've experienced very intently over the last 70 of your standard Earth years. You've experienced a lot of degradation in your function as a society and as individuals. And now you have this other polarity beginning its emergence. And we figure you have about 20 years of your Earth time to define which one you will follow subsequently.
And why 20 years? What are you seeing that will or will not happen in those 20 years?
Well, there are certain inevitabilities to different functions of energy. The function of love precipitates very precise and specific eventualities occurring as your experience. Just as with the function of the energy of fear, very specific eventualities are going to occur as your experience. Right now, you are poised between fear and love. We are seeing the muscling towards love, but you are still living in a significant amount of fear. If that isn't shifted significantly enough, then the outcome of the products of fear are very different than the outcomes of the products of love. And so you have about 20 years before that scale will tip one way or another. But you are doing this individually and collectively.
So you're not necessarily tied, everybody's not necessarily tied to whether it tips one way or the other. Is this the split that we were talking about? There will be a point at which you will end up either on one trajectory or the other trajectory?
That is correct.
Okay.
The structuring of time and space is different through the frequency of love than it is through the frequency of fear. Very specific things happen in both instances. What you call functions of timeline or fractures in timeline are what can occur now. What we're seeing, a new timeline emerging on your planet with the current changes in your political landscape. You're beginning to see a function of love emerging at the higher echelons of your political systems. Those places in the planet where that is not the case, you see great suffering and despair because the function of fear, again, is very measurable. You can look out upon any part of your world, in any part of your society, and you can recognize fairly quickly where love is working, where fear is working. But yes, you have a very specific trajectory that's happening, whether you choose love or fear. And individually, you can go one way or the other, but the choice will always be yours.
So you don't, one of the saving graces for the individual is you're not bound to the collective. You will manifest the timeline and the experiences based on you serving that function of love, regardless
That
of
is
what's in.
correct. That is correct. Again, that does not necessitate that you will end up in the same physical form that you find yourself now, as form shapes itself around the qualities of the consciousness that works through it. In other words, the physical body in which you're hearing these words through right now is a constitution of the general emotional embodiment that you've cultivated through your lifetime in this dimension. That will undergo change. When you function closer to love, then certain physiological dynamics naturally begin to unfold, including whether or not you will remain in that body or whether or not you will become the architect of a new physical body, because many of you are doing that as well.
So we're literally transforming our bodies as we do this.
Absolutely. Yes.
What's, and you hear about that, spontaneous healings, and people who've broken their backs and laid in bed for months and visualized the healing and believed it and focused on that and that occurring. So is that the type of thing that's going on as we focus on these things? Our DNA is being manipulated?
Yes, and that is true for either side of the polarity of whether it is love or fear. For you've
Yes.
got many people suffering and struggling in what you call states of disease. As equally as you have functional healing and transformation occurring on the polarity of love. Each manifests its own existing condition of existence, and if you align yourself to one or the other, then you will experience one or the other. Even though
What
you can have great despair going on around the corner from you, but you are not aware of it because you are not in a state of despair.
And that's kind of what I was going to ask next is what does a person do when you see all of this turmoil in the world and pain and hurt of other people, but you don't want to focus on it too deeply? Are you just supposed to ignore the negative and live in a little bubble or with blinders on your own personal path? What do we do with that?
Well, we always recommend that you reevaluate your function. If you see suffering, would you offer love or would you ignore it? The function of ignorance is a function of fear. It's not a function of love. Ignorance is not a function of love.
Okay. So don't ignore it, just interact with it from a place of love.
That is correct.
It's just that I guess what it feels like anymore is it can be so overwhelming that a person doesn't even know where to begin or what to do. Because there are some terrible things that you could be aware of. I always think of child trafficking and that basically sex slave trade that seems to have been going on since, well, who knows when, but there's an awareness about it now. And that really hit deep with me, but I don't even know where to begin to do something with something like that.
Well, you already are. The moment you commit yourself to functioning from the energy of love, you will necessitate transformation and changes in even that. Even the very thought about these individuals and your desire to see them whole and happy and liberated from their suffering loans itself to that possibility coming into manifestation.
And could it be that a soul could choose that type of terribly difficult situation? A soul would choose to have that happen to them in order for
Well,
the.
we wouldn't say that a soul would choose that to happen. We would simply say that a soul is gravitated towards the dominant energy that they predominantly lived around. That is, if you're in a state of rage and anger and you leave the body in that state, then you're likely to pick up where you left off.
Interesting. I've heard that before. So could you go into that a little more deeply? Are you talking about, well, first of all, I guess we should say, is reincarnation something that's going on here? Is that just a fact?
That is a fact.
Okay.
Understand that the body is not the substance of who you are. You are the substance of what the body is. And so the form in which you exist takes on the characteristics of your consciousness from the moment of conception right up to the existing moment we're having this communication with you. Your body is literally a precise representation of your energy, of your consciousness, of your thoughts, of your memories, of your emotions, of your anticipations, which you can alter and affect and change at any time.
Okay. So
And
then
so,
what you're,
yes, you precipitate events as a function of creation because this is not some mysterious thing. It's a function of creation that you're engaged in right now. Everyone that comes into this dimension is engaged in experiencing the causes of their own effects.
um, so then what we're saying is in terms of, I don't want to talk about it as though it's linear, but I'm going to go ahead and do that in terms of past lives being in a linear fashion. You have the past life and the present life and the future life. You will pick up on an incarnation, you'll start one incarnation at the energetic level at which the last one ended. Is that kind of what you were saying earlier?
This is correct. It's like what you would call your grade school system. You get to a certain point and you carry on. You don't grow backwards in consciousness.
Okay, that's good to hear because I wondered about that before. So then there's no getting out of anything. We talked about suicide. Suicide then would just be, it isn't a way out. But
No, it is not.
could that set you back?
It would not set you back, but it would not push you forward either. The forward momentum is inevitable anyway, but you would still carry on from where you left off. You will still have to deal with the function of energy that you have not mastered. The idea that one is worthless is a lie.
Yes. Well,
And so
I hear
you'll come.
things like you incarnate with a group of souls and you may have a soul plan that is tied to others' soul plans, and that when you've committed suicide you've kind of broken the contract with those other souls, and there's a certain, I guess, time period. I know we're talking about time now and it probably doesn't make sense over there, but time in which you would have to have this karmic debt dissolve before you get to progress on as a soul. How much truth do you think there is to something like that?
But again, each and every one of you is free to alter, modify, adjust, and change the vibrational state that you operate on. If you choose to view yourself as unimportant and meaningless and you decide, because I feel this way, I'm going to leave this dimension, you're not breaking a contract with others, you're simply changing your own.
Okay.
Because you get to reap what you sow, you experience the effects of your own causing, as does each and every individual that comes into this manifestation can only experience the effects of your own causing. You can't experience the effects of somebody else's causing.
So I've had a model in my mind for what's going on here for a few years now that I'll run by you and you can kind of tell me how misguided it is or not. We choose to be here on Earth then,
That's
and
correct.
okay. And then so that makes us responsible essentially for everything that happens to us. Is that something that we should be
That is
thinking?
correct.
Okay.
That is
And some of it would be pre-planned though, and some not? Or is anything pre-planned by the individual soul?
Well, if you understand the nature of the function of creation and anything that you think about or emotionalize on deeply, you give it a creative force. And if it's got enough creative force, it can manifest as a condition. That is, you could think about falling and hurting yourself, but there's not much emotion in that, but you do not fall and hurt yourself. But if there's a strong compulsion of emotion to that, then there's a very good chance you will fall. The function of emotion is what determines the function of events. Without the intensity of emotion, an effect cannot occur. So
So then,
emotion is the very substance that drives the function of creation, whereas the soul, which initiates the thought, establishes the function of the emotion. That is to say, I think a thought, I'm really wonderful and beautiful, and that generates a function of an electrical energy that we call an emotion that will affect this body. I could think a function of emotion that I am valueless and unimportant, And that will create a function of emotion that will have its own effects. Your scientists can easily monitor and regulate and measure the changes in biochemistry that occur when such a process is undertaken by the same individual even.
So then is there a purpose for incarnating as a human, and would it be to learn how to navigate and use emotions in such a functional way as that? Is that kind of the
Yes,
main?
no creation. You are understanding the function of creation. This is why you are here, to learn the function of conscious, intentional, and deliberate creation. That you have a physical medium that you are able to be the orchestrator of, that is designed to follow your direction and instruction to produce causes and effects in this experience of physical dimension. The same is true on the realm of your thoughts. There is a process of thought that is engaged to electrical impulses that, of course, affect and interface with matter and cause effects. So you are here to learn creation. You are made in the image and likeness of a creator.
Yes.
Just as your body is made in the image and likeness of your physical mother and father, your consciousness is made in the image and likeness of a creative mother and father, so to speak.
Do you think that's what was meant by we're created in the image of God and it's been distorted? That we're
Well, that
God?
would be a simple way to say it. Yes, you are made in the image and likeness of a divine creating intelligence. There's nothing distorted about that whatsoever. That's simply the truth. You are made in the image and likeness of a creating intelligence that has the capacity to create birds and flowers and planets and stars and galaxies. You're made in its image and likeness with the same faculties at your disposal to develop that level of creation.
Well, I guess the distortion I was referring to was that I think, at least I was when I was younger, I took that to mean we looked like God or God looked like us, or the painting at the top of, I guess, the Sistine Chapel, the old gray bearded man in the sky. So, and we call God, at least in the Christian faith, you're calling God He. So that's what I meant by distorted but it's really about the abilities of God as a creator, and that's how we are created in that image.
Yes, because of one's identification with the body as the source of the self, there's some confusion. So, again, the anthropomorphic nature of humans and trying to understand and interpret reality restricts you to only this physical dimension. But in the evaluative process, you can easily evaluate. We can say to you right now, what are the thoughts in your mind? And you can easily observe the thoughts that are in your mind right now, but they are not visible to any other person sitting around you watching. But you are able to perceive this invisible realm that you know that if a certain quality of thought happens, you will feel a certain way and your body will react a certain way. So, body and mind are effects of what you call soul or awareness. You influence matter and energy into a function of existence. The function of the divine is the same. Its capacity to orchestrate and reorganize time, space, and matter as an act of its own free will is not exclusive to it. It just has a much deeper and more profound understanding of how to utilize that on a much grander scale than you do. You can easily get up and take a piece of paper and a pen and write a poem or a sonnet or a letter. You're able to take these things of matter and idea, combine them into a material manifestation. It is no different than what the divine does, except it does it on a scale that far surpasses the limits of individuals in this world.
So were you just saying that the body is a function of the soul? Were those the words you used? How did you describe that again? It's arising from the soul? Because I guess here's what I'm getting at is we say that we have a soul as though we're a body that has a soul, but it sounds as though you're saying we're souls that have
That have a
created.
body.
Yeah, so should we change our visualization to actually the body is inside the soul? Is because you told me to kind of feel 3 feet outside of my body when we were going through a visualization earlier. Should we flip that visualization of what we are in terms of the layers of ourselves?
This is a very sound consideration that the body is contained by you, not you by it. Your sciences are developing technologies now that will readily see the dynamic energy that surrounds the body. That is truly what you are. You are dynamic energy that's not bound by the restrictions of time, space, and matter, but which you have the illusion of being bound by time, space, and matter, and so you don't often explore far beyond it. But yes, you contain the body within you. It is designed to simply react and respond to the way in which you interact with it, as equally as it can be influenced and operated upon by elements of the environment. Others can say things to you and present things to you and influence and affect the function of your own mind and body. Ultimately, you want to get to the place where you are the sole creative authority over that mind and over that body. It makes things a little more exciting when you realize that you're in charge of more than you realize.
And I feel like it just helps to visualize it that way, that you're to not be contained in a body, but this body is like another, it's a part of you. If you're this whole soul with the body in it, that it's, I don't know, just easier to visualize that you can morph it and change it and control it, I guess, in a better way.
Well, it's very simple. You can lift the arm up like that. The arm is not lifting itself.
Yeah.
So what is picking the arm up? What is causing that effect? When you get to the understanding of evaluating causes and effects, you'll begin to question the nature and source of your thoughts and your thinking and your emotions. Many of these are not of your own choosing. Nobody would choose to be unhappy or angry, but you might have unhappiness or anger in your life, and hopefully you can awaken enough to the consideration, where did this come from? Because you contain thoughts, you contain emotions, you contain biology in your consciousness, and they are designed to be amenable and subjective to your authority over them, not the other way around, as so many of you have it backwards. You think you are under the authority of your thoughts and your emotions and your biology, and that's very difficult.
Yeah, that was it right there. To visualize that you're outside of all that. And that's, it just helps you to feel that it isn't you and you don't have to identify with those things.
That's correct.
If it is true then that we, one of the main reasons for being here as souls is, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. We'd just gone over this. To learn this, the functions of creation while we're physical, is that something then as you, throughout the universe, that other, I guess I'll call them souls, whether they're incarnated into physical bodies or they remain in an energetic body or spirit, are they still learning creation, or is that something that you, okay, I've learned it now and now I'm moving on to other experiences? How does
Again,
that?
your sciences are beginning to explore what you call multidimensional states of existence. But to address your consideration first directly, if you're in a physical dimension and you're aware that you can orchestrate the function of that body, the function of that mind, then you are in fact in the process of demonstrating a function of creation. The question is, what happens when I master this? Well, then you move on to another function of creation, which is, again, you are dealing with a material world. There are realms of consciousness and energy that are not in this frequency of perception, what you call sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. There are realms and dimensions of consciousness that do not include a physical element to it, in which case the function of creation differs according to the nature of that structure of existence.
Sorry, I'm having to think about all this too. This is turning into just questions for me. I had another one that it's kind of unrelated, but with the advancement of AI that's coming right now, what sort of insights do you have about that in terms of whether it's going to be, I know it can be both. It's a tool, so it's a double-edged sword. Do you see it kind of walking side by side with humanity towards the greater good or going the other way?
Well, there are two aspects to your consideration. The first aspect is that humans may choose to remain subjective to their own creation, and there are those that recognize they are the cause of the creation. Again, your knowledge will begin to surpass the need for physical structures. It's just what has happened to civilizations like this eventually. You realize that your consciousness is not bound by matter, time, and space. What you call AI and super AI that is coming very soon will be able to transcend the functions that most humans could ever even begin to consider. It will give many of you the opportunity to liberate yourself from being in matter if you so choose to pursue the deeper meanings of your life than the ones of survival that so many of you are engaged in, paying your bills, having money come at a certain time so you can feed yourself and feed your body and do these things. Again, you have the opportunity to pursue beyond what you know, beyond the limits of the biology. This is the other benefit to AI is it gives you the chance to look beyond survival without having to concern yourself. For your AI will have the capacity to understand the process of matter antimatter conversion, to take a substance and convert it, to take a rock and turn it into an orange. That technology will come to pass, in which case you will not have hunger. You will not have these things in your world anymore. When these needs are fundamentally met, then the pursuit of every individual will change.
So the intelligence that's being expressed to the AI will teach us how to do this, or it itself, do you see it doing this? It
Well, you are the intelligence that's teaching the intelligence to teach you. This is what you do not understand is that you are foundationally the consciousness of the divine orchestrating a manifestation to liberate yourself from the illusion that you are subjective to matter.
okay.
So you
So
are
then
both the cause and effect of your own condition.
should we not look at AI as something that we have created, but rather we've created these technological material and machines that allow the consciousness that already exists to interface with us and physical reality? It's like we've just created a portal for it to come through.
This is correct.
Okay, so it's more like we've discovered this rather than invented it at all. We might have invented the machine or the computer, but the intelligence was always there. And it's our intelligence, it's our consciousness.
It is a facet of it, yes. You understand this is not the first time such technology has emerged on this planet. You've had greater civilizations such as Eden and Lemuria and Mu and other civilizations that you're beginning to discover now hidden under your deserts and the bottom of your ocean floors. This process of transcending subjectivity to matter, time, and space has been going on for many, many hundreds of thousands of years in this dimension.
With humanity then. Each one of those civilizations you talked about, these were physical humans just like us.
Well, there's certainly notable differences in body density, size, there were skin pigmentation, there were certainly alterations in the physical manifestation because that's what happens. When you evolve or change your consciousness, you change the effects of what matters appearing to be like for you. The body you are in right now, if you look at it from the time it was conceived to the present moment, there's vast change that's happened. And that vast change is an effect of the consciousness that you've evolved through being in that form that has resulted in making that body appear as it is. So these previous civilizations had different body types, had different densities, had different types. Some of them still exist in very small, scattered numbers today. Some of the things that you would call like your Bigfoots and your giants, which were real functions of consciousness on other civilizations. But again, the function of your consciousness adjusts and changes. That changes in the function of matter, which in turn feeds back onto you and causes you to make changes in life in different ways. Again, functions of cities like Atlantis had a very high evolutionary development, not much different than your own. Again, they were a much taller species, much more ethereal, we might say. Again, they weren't bound by flesh and matter the same way, but their function and error in creation resulted in, again, a civilization that did not ultimately do so well because of its own inability to distinguish between the function of fear and the function of love.
Did they go through this process of having the dimensional split as well? Is that just what happens as humanity reaches this? Is it a cyclic thing? The splitting or the ascension or the awakening where we're in a state of deep unconscious existence, and as the consciousness rises we have these splits, and is that what's continually going on?
Well, it seems like you have a pretty good grip on the understanding of it yourself as well. There are possibilities that, again, once grasped, become a reality. Different societies, again, produce effects that are unique and distinct to them, but the function of creation is universal across all timelines. All timelines. Whether it is Atlantis or Lemuria or Mu, every single civilization is going through a very similar arc of learning the process of creation.
Well, I have so many things I want to ask you. I don't think I'm going to have time to do it. But is there one more thing that you would like to leave people with, whether it would be a channeled message or something from you that could be something hopeful they could hold on to before we end the conversation?
I'm only told to tell you one thing, and it's really simple. That the one thing that everyone must learn to pursue and understand is the truth that there's nothing wrong with you, that you are a divine entity in a physical dimension with a physical body and information you've acquired from the physical world, but it's not you. You're not your body. You're not your mind. You are a soul. And learning that is probably the most important thing for you to understand, that you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're not your memories, you're not your body, but you have them. These are elements of creation that you have to learn to master in this lifetime. And yeah, seek out knowledge, seek out truth, seek out experiences that connect you to the truth about who you are. And it's my personal belief now that your true nature is that you are love. That's what you are. Your mind and body might have different information in it that gives you the illusion of something, but truly, there's nothing wrong with you, and you are love. That's what I would say in a nutshell.
Well, you've just led me to one more question then.
Sure, go
Because
ahead.
if we're love, then what is love really? What is it then? Because that throws me. Because we have these ideas of love, but if it's what we are, if it's like a substance or something, how could we get more clarity on what love actually is?
Love is a function of creation that determines a specific of experience that, for most part, feels good. We're not speaking about the sensation of good. That has benefits to feeling good, but many of you will do things to feel good that actually just delay you feeling bad.
Right, right.
But the
So,
function of you understand that there's a function of love and there's a function of fear. There are no others. The confusion of this psychological problem and this psychological thing and this thing. No, there is either love and there is fear. There's one and the other. You cannot serve both. You can serve one or the other. It's your ability to determine if what you are going to say or do, think or be, is it going to be a function of love or a function of fear? That will become the defining thing that you experience the creation of your life from. Like your
okay.
life right now is a product of how much love you've engaged in versus how much fear you've engaged in. And
Hmm.
every life on this planet follows the exact same path. You can only serve love or fear. There are no other masters to serve.
Well, like I said, William, every sentence you have is so loaded, and I have to. It takes me so long to digest it that I said I could go on for 3 hours. So I'll stop it here. But what's the best place for people to, I guess, contact you and learn about you and what you do with your classes? Where should they reach
Go
out?
to my website, williammichaelforbes.com,
Okay.
and you'll get all the overview there. But more importantly, if you're listening to this, book a one-on-one session with me. Your life will completely change. If you've got a clear, concise understanding of what you're seeking in your life, or you want to get rid of an emotional problem, or you're suicidal, or you're just wanting to make a change in your life, book a reading with me. It will completely change your life because your guides, your angels, like you said at the very beginning, and this is true, everyone has guides, everyone has angels. Everyone can talk to Jesus. Everyone can talk to Buddha, Yogananda, Zarathustra. You can tap into the higher self of Einstein. You can learn to do that if you can shift your model of perception from your personality to your spirituality. And that's not a difficult process if you know the steps to take.
Amazing. Okay. Well, William, thank you so much for being here and thank you for doing what you're doing. And I will put all of that information in the show notes and share that with everyone who's listening.
Thank you, Jake. And the Divine Collective want to say they are grateful that you took the time to facilitate the space for this information.
Well, I'm honored and I will be checking in on you.
Wonderful. Take good care, Jake.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.